Vincent van Gogh was an Impressionist painter who lived in the south of France, where he came across fields of beautiful sunflowers. Van Gogh painted these fields of sunflowers and put some into a vase to decorate his home and paint. Today we are going to paint a vase of flowers in the style of Vincent van Gogh. Here is one of Vincent van Gogh's vases of sunflowers that I'm going to use as my inspiration. So first we're going to draw our composition. We'll put the vase on the bottom half of the paper and the flowers on the top half of the paper. I'm going to start with the vase. It is round, so I'll draw the bottom of the vase like a curve, almost like a little smile. Bring up one side and bring it in a little bit. Up the other side, bring it in a little bit. Now to draw the flowers, I'm going to start with the centers. They're either circles or they're ovals. Van Gogh drew 3 flowers in his vase. We like to keep our numbers odd. That makes for a more interesting composition. So if I want to do more than 3, I could add maybe 5. That's also an odd number. Maybe I'll put one out here too. Then on each flower, I'm going to add some petals that come out from all directions, much like the rays of the sun, going out in each direction. So I will do this on each one of my flowers. So I've added petals to all my flowers, and now I'm ready to finish this up. I'm going to add a couple of leaves. There's a nice space here for one leaf. Sunflowers grow to be very, very large and tall, taller than you and I. And so their leaves and petals and flowers are very big. Maybe I could put one more over here also. And then that's pretty much it, because I have so many flowers that are taking up the rest of the space. I can finish the top of my vase, and then maybe put one stem going to this flower, but I really don't have room for any other stems up here. I'm going to add a ground line that moves behind my vase so that my vase can sit on the table. And then if you look at Van Gogh's vase, he's got it divided where there's 2 different glazes on there. So I might put a little divider on there also. And that's it. I'm ready to paint. So for painting, I'm going to use my composition, get a little bit of newspaper to put underneath it to protect the table. I like to use paper plates to put the paint on, but you could use Tupperware lids and rewash them and use them over and over. A variety of brushes, different sizes and shapes, and some tempera paints. When we paint, we're going to work from the background forward. So I'm going to do the wall or the sky first. And I think I'll use a little bit of turquoise and a little bit of blue and a little bit of white. Remember, we're using Van Gogh's painting as our inspiration, but if you want to change things a little bit, you can. Now, if I just use one color and paint it, I'm going to get a flat color like that. But the Impressionists like to do what we call double load their brush, which means they put one color on one side and then another color on the other side. And they painted with the brush that had 2 colors on it at the same time. So I'm going to do the same thing. I might put a little turquoise on there at one point and some white and then some blue. We've done these before, double loaded our brush. And just let the colors swirl around a little bit. Not mix them so much that they're all blended together, but rather they're a little bit separated, and we'll go around the background. Now if I get a little bit of paint on my petals, I'm not going to worry about that too much because I'm going to paint the petals on top. Remember, we're working from the back forward, so I can put the petals on top of the background color once the background color is dry. So you'll notice each time I put my brush in the palette, I touch 2 different colors on there. and then I'll start painting up the background. So I'll give you some time to do that. Take your time and have fun with it. Depends on how big your brush is, but you're going to use dots, dabs of both colors on your brush at the same time. Now that the background is done, I'm going to work on the table. And I'll do the same thing, double loading my brush. I got a little bit of brown and some white and some red. But I think this time, instead of dabbing the background like I did on top, I'm going to make my brush strokes smooth and move from side to side, almost like the grain in the wood of a table just kind of moves in one direction. So I will work all of that around my little vase and across the table, giving my vase a nice little brown table to sit on. This way I have a little bit of contrast between the table and the background. All right, you can see how those colors haven't exactly mixed all the way, and I'm not going to worry about that. I like that. The Impressionists would love that, so that it can show different aspects of the wood grain. Now that I have finished up my table, I'm going to think a little bit about a shadow. And while the paint is still wet, I might take a little bit of my darkest color and just add it in off to one side, just a little bit, to help indicate a shadow on the table where the vase is sitting. So this indicates that the light is coming from one side and there's a little bit of a shadow on the table moving out to the other side. Remember, these don't have to be perfect. We're just getting a feel for the paint and the composition. Van Gogh's vase is green on top and a little bit of white on the bottom, but I think I'm going to change mine. You can make your vase whatever color you would like to. I think I'm going to use a little bit of purple and white, and then I can save the green for the leaves. So I'll put a little bit of a darker color on the top like Van Gogh did, and then maybe a lighter one on the bottom. So I'll put some dark violet up there. There we go. And then without even washing my brush, I'm just going to put a little bit of that lighter violet down on the bottom. Now again, if I would like to keep with the shadows, I could put a touch of purple on the same side where those other shadows are on the table. So that way it still looks like we've got a little bit of shadow going on this side of the vase. There we go. Now I'm going to let everything dry really good before I start doing my flowers. My flowers are going to be lighter and they're going to be on top of this. I don't want the colors to mix together too much, so I'm going to stop and let everything dry real good and then come back to it, maybe even tomorrow. So now I'm going to paint the centers of each sunflower brown. I'm going to move slowly around each center and just fill it in with brown. I like to use brown rather than black because black tends to overpower my painting when I use the black, so I'll use browns. Now I'm going to paint the leaves. They're green, and we know that yellow and blue make green, so I've got yellow, green, and blue on my palette. This way I can mix light and dark greens while I'm painting. I'll add a little bit of yellow around in some places, and then I can put some blue in to make it darker right here on other places. So I'm going to fill in the leaves and the stems with variations of these three colors. Notice I'm not cleaning my brush. I'm just going to keep putting these 3 colors on my brush until I think I've got it the right way I want it. And I'm not even rinsing my brush. Remember, the colors are going to stay unmixed on the painting so that we can see all those different colors that we used in the painting. So my leaves have dried, and now I'm ready to add some petals in there. I've got yellow daisies, so I've got a little bit of yellow and white to make them lighter and a little orange to make them darker in places. I'm going to paint all of the petals, probably a little bit of yellow and white together, and then I can go back in and add some of the orange. When you look at daisies and the way they grow, they're a lot darker around the center of the flower. And so that's what I'm going to add in here. And I'll show you how I'm going to do that. I'm just going to fill all these petals up with lots of color right on top of some of the background paint too. Some flowers are red and orange. You decide what color you want to make your flowers. They don't necessarily have to be daisies. So you can decide on whatever color you want to make the vase or the table or the flowers. But the important thing, I think, is to experiment with some different colors and try some variations of lights and darks and see what happens. So I finished painting the flowers, and I'm going to let those dry really good and then add a little bit of detail to them later. Everything's dry now. I'm going to take a little bit of black and outline some things just to sharpen and crisp things up. You could use Sharpie markers, or you could use crayons, or you could use oil pastels. I'm going to use oil pastels and see how that works on here. And I'm just going to carefully go around some of the lines just to crisp things up so that you can really see them. Vincent Van Gogh tended to use heavy paint and heavy outlines, so this kind of goes along with his theme. And I'm just going to crisp some things up. Now, the fun thing about these flowers is in the center, there's seeds, and they make a pattern. So you could put some little dots for seeds in the center of your flowers, or maybe even a checkerboard almost, just to have fun with a little pattern in the center of that flower. You can make each one different. You could make them all the same. You could put a little swirl inside of there. But try to keep it neat. You've done such a great job with all the painting now that we would like to keep some of this neat also. And you can even trace around some of these lovely petals on your flowers. All right, so let me see what you got. I can't wait to see your pictures. I'm going to finish this up a little bit. Oh, and one last thing. If we look closely at Vincent Van Gogh's still life, we'll notice that he wrote his name on the vase. So you can do that too. Just write your name on there. Just like Vincent Van Gogh did. Beautiful. Hope you had fun. Bye-bye.